The morning was quiet until the pounding began. A sharp, furious rhythm against glass and wood, breaking the calm like thunder before a storm. On the porch stood a woman gripping a paper like a weapon, two men behind her dressed in imitation authority. Inside, Kevin Mercer, a proud black homeowner, had no idea his right to peace was about to be challenged. What started as laughter over morning coffee would soon turn into a confrontation that tested dignity, power, and truth. Because when an entitled neighbor sends fake cops to your door, she has no idea who's really waiting inside. But first, please make sure to subscribe the channel and comment below from which city you are watching this video. The day began like any other, sunlight filtering through kitchen windows, the faint hum of morning life beyond the fences of a quiet suburban street. Inside his modest but well-kept home, Kevin Mercer sat at his kitchen table, savoring the last sip of coffee. Across from him was his cousin, Sheriff Roland Mercer, who had stopped by early to talk about a family matter that couldn't wait. Their laughter drifted easily through the house, two men grounded in familiarity and calm. But peace, as it often does, can vanish in an instant. The first knock came soft, the second harder. By the third, the glass in the front door trembled. A woman's voice sliced through the morning air, shrill and commanding, echoing off the porch. She held a crumpled paper like a declaration of war, flanked by two men wearing cheap uniforms that didn't quite fit. Kevin's expression shifted, calm giving way to wary stillness. Roland raised an eyebrow, reading the change in the air. Trouble had arrived, uninvited and loud. Beyond the door, Evelyn Hartwell, the self-appointed queen of the neighborhood association, stood armed not with truth, but with arrogance. Her stance, her tone, every breath she took carried one message: you don't belong here. What she didn't know was that the man inside belonged more than anyone she'd ever met, and the cousin sitting across from him was the last person she should have tried to intimidate. Kevin pushed his chair back, his calm presence barely masking the irritation bubbling underneath. He wasn't surprised, just tired of moments like this. Without a word, he walked to the door and opened it, facing the scene head-on. Evelyn Hartwell stood there like a self-appointed general, her chin high, a smirk frozen on her lips. Behind her, the two supposed officers shifted awkwardly, their thrift store uniforms wrinkled, badges gleaming like toy stickers. She held up her sheet of paper, waving it with the authority she wished she had. "You're standing on property that doesn't belong to you." Her voice dripped with superiority. "Step outside right now, or we'll deal with this the hard way." The imposters tried to mirror her confidence, puffing out their chests as they echoed her command. "Sir, come on out. You're under investigation." Kevin stared back, unshaken. Investigation? He owned this land outright, his name etched on every official document. He saw through them instantly. But Evelyn leaned in close to her men, whispering loudly enough for him to hear. "We'll rattle him a bit. Get that truck towed, and his gate locked. He'll come crawling by morning." Her arrogance was almost theatrical. Kevin's jaw tightened, but he remembered Roland's steady gaze from inside. Don't give her the scene she wants. One of the imposters shoved the crumpled paper into Kevin's chest. "Official HOA directive," he announced. The page was laughable, no letterhead, full of typos and blotched ink. Evelyn crossed her arms with smug satisfaction, convinced her charade was working. "Start packing, sweetheart," she said. "You won't last here long." The insult burned, not for what she said, but for what she meant. It wasn't about property lines or paperwork. It was about belonging. About color. Kevin stayed silent. He didn't need to speak. Instead, he stepped back, opening the door wider. The wood creaked beneath the boots of real authority. From the kitchen, Sheriff Roland Mercer appeared, badge glinting under the soft morning light. His calm was unnerving, a stillness sharpened by experience. He stopped just behind Kevin, voice level but edged with quiet power. "Interesting," he said, each syllable deliberate. "Because I don't recall appointing new officers in my county." The imposters froze. Evelyn's smirk faltered, her lips parting as her mind scrambled to recover. "Oh, officer. Thank heavens you're here," she stammered, pretending relief. "This man refuses to obey the homeowner's rules. He's trespassing. I called my private security to handle it." Roland took the fake document from her men, tore it neatly in half, and let the pieces fall to the porch. His tone remained controlled, but every word carried the weight of authority. "This isn't an order," he said evenly. "It's a forgery. And since when does a neighborhood president get to assemble her own police department?" The imposters exchanged anxious glances. Evelyn's face flushed, anger warring with panic. "He's lying," she snapped, pointing at Kevin. "He doesn't even own this land. He's squatting here illegally. Arrest him already." Roland tilted his head, eyes narrowing slightly, half amused, half disappointed. "Kevin," he said, not looking away from her, "you got your paperwork handy?" Kevin nodded, disappearing into the house for a moment before returning with a thick folder. Deeds, maps, ownership papers, all signed, sealed, and stamped. He laid them on the table by the door. Roland flipped through the documents, confirming what he already knew. "Looks ironclad to me." He closed the folder with a sharp snap. Then he met Evelyn's gaze head-on. His voice dropped, calm but final. "So let me understand this. You brought counterfeit officers onto his property and tried to evict a lawful homeowner?" The silence that followed was heavy, fragile, and about to break. The impostors shifted uneasily, sweat beading at their temples. Evelyn's confidence cracked, but she clung to it like a mask slipping off mid-performance. "This community is under my supervision," she said, her voice trembling beneath the weight of her own lie. "He doesn't fit in here. People like him never do." Roland's expression darkened. The air around him seemed to tighten, thick with unspoken warning. His hand drifted near his belt, not out of threat but instinct. "People like him," he repeated slowly. The silence that followed was deafening. Even the morning birds seemed to pause, sensing the shift. Evelyn realized too, late, she'd crossed a line she couldn't uncross. Her words, those 4 poisonous syllables, hung heavy in the air. Roland's voice came out low, measured, and lethal in its calm. "Say that again," he murmured, eyes locked on her. Evelyn's lips parted, but no sound came. Her power, so loud moments ago, was gone. She tried again, desperate to claw back control. "He's just some black nobody with a truck and old house," she spat. "This neighborhood doesn't need his kind dragging down property values." Kevin stood still, watching her unravel. His silence spoke louder than any argument could. Roland took a slow step forward, shadows stretching across the porch. "That nobody," he said, voice steady as iron, "is a decorated combat veteran. A man who's earned more right to this soil than most will ever know. And you just marched onto his land with 2 impersonators pretending to be law enforcement." The impostors broke instantly. We didn't know," one stammered, ripping the fake badge from his shirt. "She told us it was legal work." Both men tossed their plastic badges onto the ground, eyes wide with guilt. Then they ran, boots pounding down the driveway, leaving Evelyn standing alone, authority stripped bare. Her breath hitched. The paper in her hand shook like a leaf in a storm. This is a misunderstanding," she pleaded, her voice quivering. "I was only trying to keep order here. You can't prove anything." But the storm had already broken. Roland didn't answer Evelyn's plea. Instead, he reached into his vest pocket and pulled out a small black device. A single click filled the tense air with her own recorded voice, sharp, clear, and damning. "We'll rattle him. Tow his truck. Lock the gate. He'll come begging by tomorrow." The color drained from her face. Her hands trembled as the truth played back in her own words. "You set me up," she hissed, trembling between fury and fear. Roland's tone remained calm. "No, ma'am. You set yourself up." Evelyn's defiance faltered completely. She glanced between the 2 men, one steady and composed, the other standing in the authority of the law, and realized her performance had reached its final act. "You can't use that recording," she shouted desperately. "It's illegal. It won't hold up in court." Roland clipped the recorder back to his vest. "That audio came from my body cam," he said evenly. "Perfectly lawful. And now it's evidence." Her voice broke. "Evidence for what?" I was only doing my job." Roland's voice turned quiet, the kind of quiet that demands to be heard. "Impersonating an officer. Criminal trespass. Harassment. Fraud. You want me to keep listing?" Evelyn's last thread of composure snapped. "No, you can't do this to me. I run this community." Kevin exhaled slowly, a dry laugh escaping, the first sign of release since it began. "No, Evelyn," he said, voice low and certain. "They're not depending on you. They're afraid of you. Big difference." Roland nodded once, his duty clear. "That's enough, ma'am. You're under arrest. You can explain yourself to a judge." As the cuffs clicked around her wrists, Evelyn turned toward the gathering crowd, neighbors drawn by the commotion. "You all know me. Tell him I'm in charge." But no one spoke. One man muttered, "About time someone stopped her." The rest just watched, silent witnesses to a reckoning long overdue. Roland led her down the steps toward the patrol car. Kevin stood in the doorway, quiet strength in his posture. Because sometimes justice doesn't come with anger, it comes with calm truth and the courage to stand your ground. And when arrogance meets accountability, that's when peace finally finds its voice.